Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of a webcast on the Appalachian Music section online. For the next few minutes, we'll be talking with author, editor, scholar, and avid musician Ted Olson about his editorship of the Appalachian Music section, both in the hard copy of the Encyclopedia of Appalachia and the now online version. Ted, thanks for being here today, coming down to our offices to talk with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Ted is professor of Appalachian Studies at East Tennessee State University. And as I mentioned, he edited both the Encyclopedia of Appalachia's music section and the now online section. Ted, let me start off by asking you about how you became interested in Appalachian studies and what brought you into Appalachian music and the Appalachian region to study with in the first place.
Well, it's interesting how a person gets kind of committed to a topic and spends their life pursuing it. And in my case, I would trace it back to being very young and growing up outside of Washington, D.C. And my parents were into music pretty heavily and encouraged our collective interest in music, my brothers and sisters and myself. All of us had our own kind of musical passions, and mine ended up being Appalachian folk music from a very young age. I heard people like Hazel Dickens and John Jackson, well-known and respected Appalachian musicians on the Mall in Washington, D.C., playing at the the folk festival there at the Smithsonian, and also the National Folk Festival at Wolf Trap. So I heard some of the creme de la creme of Appalachian musicians growing up in D.C. And when I was a teenager, I started to make forays into Appalachia to learn about Appalachia firsthand. And I befriended some musicians who basically showed me how Appalachian music is played and how it's not played. And so I basically kind of apprenticed in a very informal sense with those musicians, and it helped my playing, but it also made me much wiser to what music is really about. It's not all about show, it's about substance, it's about spirit, it's about communicating the values of a culture. And so that's what kind of got me interested in Appalachian music.
Well, since we are talking about Appalachian music, I should mention that you play a particular style of banjo.
That's right. I play the old-time clawhammer style of banjo. That's the style of banjo that would have been heard in Appalachia, say, in the 19th century. It's a style that's derived from the African-American style. And, of course, African-Americans brought the banjo, or the idea of the banjo, to Appalachia in the first place. So it's the old-time style, and it's a nice, unique style that you don't hear too often anymore, but I like to try to keep it alive as best I can.